Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, the company addressed or got ahead of the next big trend in technology, smartphone addiction. For Tech Republic and ZDNet, I'm Dan Patterson with Larry Dignan and Jason Hiner. Larry, this trend has been bubbling since before the Cambridge Analytica scandal. In fact, in 2017, several Facebook founders came out and said, hey, all of these technology platforms, whether it's Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Apple, build addiction mechanics into the platforms themselves. Apple is well aware of the potential dangers of a negative, prolonged news story like smartphone addiction. What did the company do at WWDC to get ahead of this story?
They came out with a dashboard, which will show your exact usage. They copied a lot of stuff Android has, like threaded notifications. I think what stuck out for me is how much Apple's approach rhymed with what Google did. I think the primary difference was Apple's leaving it a lot to the user to set limits on their app usage, what they do at bedtime and all that, where Google had all that too, but they were also using some of their own AI to say things like, you know, you've been watching YouTube too long. That's really not AI, it's basically a timer, right? But they're basically, both of them are doing it. And, you know, I could call it the CYA phone addiction tour because they're both getting ahead of this so they don't get called before Congress at some future date, which probably a year from now or whatever. Because I think this addiction thing is just going to explode when it comes to digital devices.
Jason, were the features that Apple announced in iOS 12 enough to get ahead of this story, or does the company need to do more?
I think it's enough to stay up. I don't know about getting ahead, but I think that things like do not disturb when you're in the car makes perfect sense, right? You can turn that on, or it'll automatically turn on in some cases where you know, it's going to block your messaging. It's going to keep you from getting distracted while you're driving. The other one that's probably not a bad idea is sleep. So it can, you can set your sleep hours. During those times, it's going to not have notifications, so your phone's not buzzing and waking you up, which of course is a new thing. 2012, we talked about this at CES. You know, sleep is sort of like the new standing. You know, standing desks and everything have been the big health trend in tech the last few years. Sleep is kind of it. There's a lot of investment in sleep tech, and so this kind of jives with a lot of what's happening already in the tech ecosystem. And yeah, it's probably a good thing. Like Larry said, it is much more focused on user intervention than it is with Google, where Google's trying to learn your patterns, use AI and machine learning to help kind of tailor itself to you.
When we look out at the macro tech environment, especially the data firms, Larry, I know that you're fairly confident that this is, if not the next scandal, a percolating scandal. What are the companies, the data companies, doing to curb this addiction beyond what Google and Apple have announced?
I think, well, Facebook's going to be an obvious target. Same with social. If you go to any event where there's parents and kids, there's parents yelling at their kids about smartphone usage, and then they're right on their phone. So it's not an age thing, it's an everything thing. And, you know, Apple sort of positioned that a little bit today because they talked about those limits on certain apps. So it's almost like Apple's going, you know, certain apps, Facebook. So you can kind of see what they're doing, right? Like they're sort of distancing themselves. Like, yeah, we gave you the platform, but I think the data and how these things are architected, it'll be a big issue. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like any other business. Tobacco, drinking, gambling. I mean, I think the biggest question is, will smartphones be like a sin stock? But you sort of see where that's going, right? I mean, addiction's good business. So they want to cover their butts, but you know, you don't want to totally undo that architecture because there's a lot of money there.
All right. Addiction is good business. It's a big business. If you would like to understand the business of data more, you can visit Tech Republic in ZDNet, where we have PDFs, we have ebook downloads, and don't forget to subscribe to the Top Story of the Day newsletter in Tech Republic and the Tech Today newsletter on ZDNet.